Hey everybody, welcome to my second episode on the poker vlog Run Good, Play Better. During this episode, I visit Morongo. It's January 28th. I'm playing the 1-3 game. I buy in for 300. That's the normal amount, that's the max. And it's a pretty lively session. I start off very hot and I have a pretty interesting hand at the end. So keep your eyes peeled and I hope you enjoy. This session starts off pretty quickly. Right when I sit down, I get dealt King Jack suited. As I'm pulling my chips out of the rack, there's a raise under the gun to $15. The under the gun plus one calls. I think about raising, but I'm just not ready for it yet. I just make the call. The hijack makes the call, and the button also makes the call. Seeing a flop five ways isn't really my favorite thing, but I have a strong hand, and when I see the flop, I feel a little encouraged because I flop top pair. I have a backdoor spade draw, and I have a backdoor straight draw. I see the under the gun bet out $20. The under the gun plus one calls, and I don't really want to get too crazy or too involved in a hand yet. I don't know any of these players, so I just make the call, and the hijack and the button both fold. The turn comes out, it's the seven of spades, and I like this because now I do have a flush draw. I have top pair and a pretty good kicker. The under the gun and the under the gun plus one both check over to me. I think it's a good time to put more money in the pot, so I raise to $55. The under the gun calls and the under the gun plus one folds, and we're going to a river heads up. The hand really just keeps getting better and better. The river comes out. It's the Jack of Hearts, and my opponent does not look happy about it. He checks over to me, and there's not really a doubt in my mind that I have the best hand at this point, so I just bet out $100, not expecting a call at all. He snap folds, and I just show a jack to be friendly. I'm gonna win my first hand sitting down at the table. It feels pretty nice, and I'm excited to get involved in the next hand. So this next hand is pretty interesting. Although I said I was pretty excited to get involved in the next hand, I fold ace jack offsuit to a raise from the person directly to my left. I haven't really played with him before. He had position on me. He seemed pretty aggressive. It just didn't really seem like the right time to get involved. A couple minutes later, I'm in the small blind. I wake up with ace jack offsuit again. The middle position raises to $10. The hijack calls. And I think I'm going to set a trap here and just call from the small blind. And it worked. The big blind goes ahead and raises again. He makes it $43. The middle position and the hijack both fold. I contemplate if I want to raise and play a really big pot early on in the session, or if I just want to slow play and let this guy bet into me if I flop something good. I decide to slow play and just call here, and I literally immediately regret this as the flop comes out and I flop the nuts with Broadway. My opponent has already showed me that he's really aggressive, so I don't see any point in betting here. I just check it over to him, and what do you know? He does bet out. He throws out $50, and I take my time before just smooth calling here. I really don't want to set off any alarm bells in this guy's head. If he thinks he has a really strong hand or the best hand, I want to let him keep betting into me and really just try to milk him for his whole stack because nobody three bets me and gets away with it. So I just call and we go to a turn, which is the three of hearts. I'm kind of thinking that this guy thinks I'm really weak and that if I throw out a small bet here, as if I just want to put out a blocker bet, that he'll just shove all in over me. So I bet out for $55 and it pretty much works exactly how I planned it. He goes all in for about 175. I make the call, and the river brings the eight of diamonds. I show my hand immediately. My opponent says that he missed. He probably had a straight draw with the club draw or something along those lines, but he just got a little bit carried away and a little bit aggressive, and I capitalized on it. I think if a club or a heart came out, my opponent definitely would have been able to put me in a very tough spot. But given how aggressive he was, I think that I probably would have just called any bet he made on the river. We really weren't that deep at that point, and it's hard to fold the nut straight even if there is a flush out there. I look down at ace jack offsuit in the cutoff, and I see five players have limped in. So this just won't do. I'm gonna go ahead and raise it here. I make it $30, and the big blind, under the gun, middle position, and the hijack player all make the call, and we're now headed five ways to a flop again. Like I said earlier, I'm not the biggest fan of going five ways to a flop, but I've got a strong hand, I've had luck on my side, and I've got position over everyone. So the flop comes out, it's king high, there's a queen and a three of spades, and the big blind checks. The under the gun player bets out for $15. The middle position player calls, the hijack calls, and I think I'm just gonna call here as well. I have another draw to Broadway, and I guess I have a jack for the backdoor spades, although with this many people in the pot, I'm really not too excited about that. Either way, for the cheap price of $15, I am happy to call. The big blind feels the same way, and after he makes a call, we see a turn. The turn comes, it's the eight of spades, and the under the gun player bets again, only for $15, and the middle position player gets out of the way, the hijack gets out of the way, and it's just me and the big blind left. I don't really love this card. The under the gun player could easily have a flush already, and that flush could definitely be higher than my jack. So I could just be drawn dead here. But once again, the price is so cheap that it would actually be crazy not to call. So I make the call, the big blind folds, and we go to a river. The river brings the 10 of spades. I end up making a jack high flush, which is actually the third best flush possible. My opponent bets out for $15 a third time, and considering the way my opponent has been betting, I wouldn't really assume that she is that strong. However, she does only have $20 left in her stack, so considering her stack size, the bet is pretty large. I just flick in the $15. I'm really expecting to see an ace of spades here, but to my surprise, my opponent shows over Queen Jack offsuit for a second pair, and I'm going to take down another sweet pot. I pretty much feel invincible in this session. Every hand is going my way. I almost feel like I can't lose, and all these thoughts are in my head when I look down at pocket eights in the cutoff. There's been three players who limped in, and I only raised to $15. Looking back at it, this was definitely a mistake. I think I even realized this while I was at the table, but I only raised to $15 here, and I get three callers. The under the gun is called, the under the gun plus one is called, and the middle position is called. We see a flop that comes queen high with a seven and a deuce. Everybody really sheepishly just checks over to me, and it seems pretty obvious I have the best hand here. I definitely don't have a queen, but I think if any of my opponents did have a queen, they would have bet here. So I just bet $20, everybody folds, and I win another easy pot. These little pots really don't seem like much, but when you've been card dead for a while, or maybe you make a bad call here and there, these little pots can really save you. Whenever I play a session, I typically like to go for about 6 hours, and this session, I was pretty card dead towards the end of this 6 hours. And right before I'm getting ready to go, it's almost my big blind. I'm under the gun. I wake up with ace king suited. I'm first to act, so I do a standard raise to $15. The under the gun plus one calls, the middle position player calls, the button calls, and the big blind also calls. We're pretty much only hoping to see a flop of all clubs, considering that we're five ways in this pot and pretty much out of position against almost everyone. When the flop comes Jack 9 8 with two clubs, the big blind checks over to me, and I think I want to make a big bet on this board to really just fold out all the marginal hands. Um, I think in retrospect, I could have bet small here, considering that anybody with a 10 would probably call, and I do have a flush draw to the nuts. But I just decided to raise to $30 here.
which gets the trick done for the under the gun player who folds almost immediately, and it gets around to the middle position player who decides to raise to $130. Now the button player folds, the big blind folds, and I have to kind of sit here and wonder, if I miss the club on the turn, am I really going to want to put in another big bet against this guy? And I decide, yeah, I do. So I make the call. I don't really think about it too much. Once again, in retrospect, I think shoving here is not too bad of a play. The only problem I really saw with shoving here was the fact that we pretty much covered each other, and I really didn't want to play 6 hours to just lose everything in one hand. So I just call, and we go to a turn, which comes the 10 of spades. My opponent's already got a bet ready. He waits for me to check and then slides in $150. After calling the 130 on the flop, I pretty much don't think I could ever fold here for $150. I'm getting more than 3 to 1, and for all I know, I could just be good hitting one of my overcards. So after quite a long tank, longer than it should have been, I make the call and we go to a river. The river comes, it's a 7 of spades, and I pretty much am giving up on the hand at this point. I didn't get my club. I didn't get a pair. I didn't get a queen for the bigger straight. I pretty much have missed this entire board, and it's time to give up. I check it over to my opponent. He goes all in for his remaining $200. And I consider for a second calling here just because there is a straight on the board. But honestly, with the spades also on the board and the fact that my opponent could easily have a queen or king queen, I really just don't think I'm gonna be chopping the pot here. Usually on these kind of boards, when people make these bets, they show the cards and they have them. So I just lay my hand down, I show the opponent, and he actually goes ahead and shows me his cards, which were deuce five of clubs, showing the bluff and wrecking my world right before I leave. Nice.
So I know I said the last hand would be interesting. I lied. It was actually just terrible. I did not play it well at all. I definitely thought about this fact for 2 weeks after the fact. And yeah, if you think you would have played the hand better somehow on any of the streets, let me know. I'll interact with you in the comments. We could figure out what the best possible way to play that hand would have been. Overall, it was a great session. I bought in for 300 in total. Didn't have to rebuy this time. Cashed out for 685, meaning I had a profit of $385. Pretty nice. Cha-ching. I hope you guys like this video. If there's anything you want to see in the video, maybe longer or shorter, let me know in the comments. Give me your honest feedback. I'd like to hear it. I have some cool content from a private game that I played last night. I should be editing that pretty soon, and I'm hoping to drop this next video a little bit faster than I did this one. I hope you guys liked episode 2. Once again, hit the like and subscribe, and take care.